Good day. I don't know why I do that. Saying it like that, I don't know why I changed my accent straight away. How are we? Are we well? Are we okay? I should look at the camera. The problem I've got is it's weird because it's opposites, isn't it? Because the camera's on that side, but when the camera's looking at you, it's the opposite. So the physics of cameras. But it looks like I'm looking away from the camera, but I think I'm looking at the camera. I'm talking shit probably. I'm just a bit tired because I've been up since 2:30. I woke up this morning. UFC again, it's killing me on a Sunday. It's like they keep on putting these mad events on, and these fights I really want to watch. So normally it's like I'll get up for because what they tend to do is that they have the early prelims, so they're like the lesser known fighters, and they have the prelims, they're some that fighters that you may know, and then they have the main card, which is normally like 4 fights. I normally get up for the main card, which is always a bit later on. So like if I get up for about 3:30, get down, it's about 4 o'clock, start watching it around that time. The main card's about to start or just started, so it's normally all right. But there was a couple of fights I wanted to watch in the prelims, so I got up a little bit. I got up at 2:30. I did go to sleep at 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock, so I did get a few hours sleep, and then got up 2:30. In fairness, I was surprisingly quite sprightly this morning. Normally it's like I'll be nodding off a little bit, and then I have a coffee or something and kind of perk me up a little bit, then have some water and stuff. But I was alright this morning, and then but I was excited. It was. I mean, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the fights, but I was excited for the main event. But there were some really good fights on the undercard. The co-main event and the fight before that was a really good one. So the guy. So they've got Nate Diaz, who's a legend in the UFC, and Leon Edwards, who's he's from Birmingham, actually, local, fairly local fighter to us, which was a really good fight. And then the Moreno Figueiredo fight, that was a really good fight. And then the main event was Izzy versus Vettori, which Izzy's ledge. But that means nothing to you if you don't watch the fight. So, but I would say it was fun. That's why I was up. I was up there, and then I had a nap in between. I had about 15-20 minutes. I worked out because I was a bit hyped after the fight, so I did an hour and a bit workout in the dungeon, and then then I nodded off. I had a cup of tea and nodded off, and then I thought I'll better go for a walk because I don't know whether I'll go for a walk later on. So I went for a walk. It's really warm. It's really I feel sticky. That sounds really horrible, but I do. I feel moist. It's. I think it's a bit humid. Yeah. So I just did. What am I on? I've done like 16,000 steps. So without the workout, I've probably done about 13,000. So what's that? 5-6 miles. Yeah, that's right. It's pretty good. It was a good walk. It was a nice walk. You can feel. I tend to know when I can feel it in my feet a little bit, and then I was like, okay, we'll sort of change the route and go towards. If I've got a bit more, then I'll change the route and go a bit further and come around. I've got a bit of a sniffle. I think it's a bit of hay fever. I have because my eyes itchy as well. Hay fever's weird. I never had hay fever as a kid, considering the amount of time we lived, especially in I would say my formative years, when I was I've got a tissue here. When I moved to Wolverhampton, so say 10 onwards, say 11 onwards, but whatever, that doesn't make no difference. We literally had fields behind us. So where those of you who know where Wolves train now, over Compton, that was basically all of that was. There was the schools were there, but it was all open. It was all open fields, like football fields and hockey pitches and stuff like that. Plus, then you had the canal and the open areas. And then you had a farmers field over there. I don't know whether the farmers field's still there. I haven't been there for years. And the university campus and stuff like that. So we had all of that area that we used to mess around in, and it was just greenery. It was just constant. That was a proper Compton's proper green area, and so. And I never had any problems at all there. We're literally rolling around in that stuff, in the grass and stuff. And you rather just come for, I need a drink. What do you have to drink? Oh, one of them.
And one of these.
Such a pig. Yeah. How does it work when you're having a 0 drink with a pack of Doritos? Do you press ups? He does press ups every day. He was only like, he was doing, I'm doing 50. He was doing them on a, you would say, say he does them on the stairs basically. So I said when you're more comfortable, you kind of reduce the angle, so until he gets to the point where you're doing it flat. And he's doing it. So he's doing it on stairs. So he said, I've done 50, I've done 50. Then he was like, for 2 weeks he was doing 50. I said, you got to increase it then. So you got to increase. 50's easy for you now then. You got to go up. So he did 100 the other day. I didn't say go up that quickly. I was going up in 10s. So they do 60 for a week and then do 70 for a week and then gradually increase. And then also, if you don't want to increase, then change your angle. But yeah, he did 100 and he said, my arms are killing me. I said, don't worry about it. It's good. They're killing you. You're growing. He's only 14, but he's tall enough so he's not going to stunt his growth in any way. He's taller than me. But anyway, what was I saying? See, you get me talking about other stuff and I forget what I'm talking about. Mom's on the phone, I could hear her. Let me shut the door. 1 second. I can't even shut the door anymore because the handle's not working on the inside, so I get locked in. I think I said that the other day, so I just kind of have to close it. That's the weights that my feet are on. Hay fever field. See, yeah, we used to roll around in that grass and stuff, and it was like I never had. It was only when more recently in the last few years I started getting it. But then last year I barely suffered with it. And now I've got a sniffle and an itchy eye. It's not COVID. I hope not anyway. No, I don't think it is. I think it's a bit hay fever. Plus it was it did seem like quite, I don't know if the pollen count's high today, but I did not walk through, but there was a lot of greenery. I was walking in and around like field and stuff like that, so I probably caught a bit of pollen up my nose. But whatever. Anyway, what's happening with you? How are you? You've been very quiet. I've not been very quiet. I've just been talking to myself. It'll be alright in a second. But you've been very quiet. You should communicate better. Football's on at the moment. You know what? Maybe it's going to take me a bit of time to get into it because I'm not hyped about the football at all. The Euros are on. And England are playing, I think, at the moment, or they'll be probably just finishing. Possibly just finishing. And I'm just not high on them. I'm not lifted by it. Oh my. I caught a little bit of the games yesterday. I caught a little bit of the Wales game. I didn't catch any of the Finland-Denmark game, but obviously we know what happened with Christian Eriksen with his collapse, but thankfully he's okay. Craziness that is. And then, like I say, I haven't sat down and watched the game. Actually sat down and watched any of the games that have been on so far. Not saying I won't, but I'm just not into it. I don't know why I'm not into it. I'm just like, football's took a bit of a backseat this year as well with all the COVID stuff and everything like that. And the only thing I ever watched was a Liverpool game. Or Liverpool games. 1 second. Hello again. That's got to cut in it now because I press stop instead of pause. Why is this coming? I don't need you. I don't need the brightness thing. I don't need lock. Ooh, it's gone really dark. Actually, that could be helpful. Is that better? No. I'm gonna mess around with this now. There we go. Yeah, it'll have to do. It'll have to do. These angles are never right, are they? I'm never happy with them. Oh, that was even better. There we go. That'll do. Alright, yes, yeah, so yeah, the football thing. I did, I think it might have been just after, I don't know what I've talked. You know, I always forget what I've talked about, that's the thing. Some things I do and some things I don't. And I got into this, I don't think I did talk about this. I might have mentioned it, I don't know. But anyway, I try not to get into any, like, political or kind of back and forth conversations with, like today with the fights. I mean, I don't mind those conversations. We just look like, you know, this. I think this. It's not an argument or a debate or anything about a fight. I mean, it could be a debate, but then that's a bit different. But with these political arguments or with anything like that, I try not to get involved in any of that shit anymore. The last time I did was a while ago on Facebook, and it was to do with Dave, the rapper, the UK rapper, Santander, as you may know him as. He performed live at the. I think it was just before, possibly just before lockdown. I think it might be February last year. Then it could be. Then again, it could be February 2019, whatever. But it was like the Brits. He performed at the Brits. You can look it up on YouTube. It's the live performance of Black. The track was called Black at the Brits, and it was talking about the black experience as he knew it and as he experienced it and as he understood it and as a black man growing up in the UK, and in fairness, a lot of experiences of a lot of black people across the world, how they felt. And it was honest, and it was it's really good and really emotional, and it's really clever, and it's really well written and well performed, because it's like it's educational as well as an art piece, because it's art, isn't it? And then somebody had put something on Facebook saying he was racist against white people, but that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about the black experience, not the white experience. And yeah, and then I kind of possibly took exception to that, because it wasn't what it was. It was like it was to the point where somebody was unwilling to understand what they were talking about, because they were just putting it on themselves. This is what I think, and which is fair enough what you think, but when you're not putting a salient argument up against just saying it's racist against white people, because he doesn't even mention anything against white people. He mentioned, like, in terms of like that he says that they were responsible for slavery, which is pretty much a foregone conclusion. No, but he doesn't say it's like explicitly. It was like, we know that it was, but it's how Africa was. Like I say, he doesn't refer to specifics of they did this and they did this and they did this, like, because it was different countries. Like, say for instance, the colonization of Africa, it was many different countries. And if you want to know which different countries, I found this map which showed how Africa was broken up by who, so Belgium, the UK, France, Portugal, well, whoever. And it just seems, and there was like only like and Africa's a big continent, and out of Africa there were like 3 or 4 places where that was never, that was it was noted as a free state, but all the other, and then it was all drawn up, the borders were all drawn up without really taking into account who lives there by Europeans, saying you can have that bit, we'll have this bit, and we'll call this, and we'll call it. But anyway, if you listen to that track, you can listen to it with. A lot of people have done breakdowns of it, so you can kind of. Some people break down the lyrics of it, so you can understand what he's talking about if you're not quite sure. But it's such a clever track, really good, really, and I've listened to it millions of times, multiple times, and there's parts of it still get me a little bit emotional. I'll touch on that in terms of me listening to music on YouTube lately. But that was the last argument. It was an argument. That was an argument. But it wasn't like I was like swearing, or it wasn't a sweary argument. I was trying to make it into a little bit of a debate, but that person was unwilling to listen, so you can't really debate. If somebody's unwilling to change their opinion, even if you speak facts, then, you know, there was another person that was agreeing with me on that thread of conversation. Other people were agreeing with that other person, which is fine. You know, that's fair enough. But, you know, if you're unwilling to listen to another person's points, what we were just pointing out was listen to the lyrics and what he's saying. He's not saying all white people are bad and all this, because he talks about at the end of that code. He doesn't do it in the release track. He does it in the live track when he talks about Jack Merritt, who was one of the guys that was killed in the London Bridge attacks when he was stabbed, and he was at that time he was looking at like reform, rehabilitation for prisoners and stuff like that, and he talks about him, and he was saying that he says in that track about how much we're brothers in arms, he calls him, that, you know, you were trying to do the right thing, and, you know, there's love in our hearts for it. I ain't gonna butcher his lyrics, but you can listen to it and all that. So he's not saying that everybody's bad, but he was like, yeah. And one thing he does say, because one thing that people do say it, famous people do say it, like political figures do say it. Political figures recently have said it. So I'm the least racist, and one thing he says in that track, which I never really thought of before, but then it makes so much sense. When somebody says I'm the least racist, and he says the least racist is still racist. Obviously, yes, it is. You can't say I'm the least racist. I've killed the least amount of people. You still killed people. It doesn't matter. So you either are or you're not racist. It's black and white, isn't it? So if somebody says I'm not racist, that's fair enough. Okay, you're not racist. If somebody says I'm the least racist, look, that doesn't really wash, does it? If you're 1% racist, you're still racist, aren't you? You've got levels to your racism. I'm only a level 1. He's a level 10. He's got a swastika tattooed on his arse. I don't know. But yeah, it was that was really, really interesting. But yeah, so that was that. But then this week on Twitter, I don't know what day it was, because I stopped myself from getting involved in it. It was about this booing the knee. So if you don't know, so England, Mum's out there now. So England, let's say, just because it's been happening across the Premier League anyway, but the England football team have said they're going to take, as a symbolic gesture against racism, they're going to take the knee before the game, before the whistle, and it's like for 3 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever it is, then start the game. And then a certain section, not all of them, a certain section of England fans have been booing it because they don't agree with it. And then this was like, somebody was commenting on something on Twitter. I was reading the comments on the tweet. I think it was Gary Lineker's, possibly Gary Lineker's one. It might be the BBC Sport one, I'm not sure. And all I said to this person was that, because they keep on equating it to the Black Lives Matter, saying, oh well, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organisation and they're agreeing with the Marxist, even though the England football team released a statement saying we're doing this as a gesture, not a gesture, as like against racism. Basically, we're taking the knee because we don't want racism within the game. So they've said that this is why we're doing it. But then people are relating it to that, because then because they're relating it like that was the only time anybody ever took the knee. I mean, if you look in America, Colin Kaepernick was taking it like a couple of years. I mean, Donald Trump was in power when he was calling him a son of a bitch for taking the knee, and it's a peaceful protest. But anyway, so they're all gonna and then all I said was that you have to separate the two things. Black Lives Matter as an organisation, yes, possibly. You know, from what they've put on their website and what they've said, they are a Marxist organisation, and but then Black Lives Matter, the movement, which is what happened after George Floyd passed away, was a movement that happened across the world about police brutality and anti-racism, and, you know, racism against minorities and black people, and, you know, that's what it was. and that was a worldwide phenomenon. That was a movement. That doesn't mean that every single person that went to a protest is a member of Black Lives Matter. No, they agreed with the movement. So conflating the two is, all I said was, it was either you're lazy in your assertion or you're purposely trying to spread misinformation. That's what I'd said. And then they commented on it, and I didn't like. If I get into this, then I'm not gonna get out of this. And I tried not to get into any of these Twitter spats because they take too much mental energy. I ain't got the time for it. But that's all I was saying, because like, it's like you have to separate the two. Plus, when the clubs released, I mean, the teams released a statement saying this is why we're doing it. It's nothing to do with anything else. This is why we're doing it. But people want to believe what they want to believe, and that's what it is. And unless you've been sort of, because there is that thing as well, you know. And some people like, oh no, unless you've been, you know, had those prejudices against you, you'll understand it more, what they're talking about. And I'm not saying, I mean, I've had racial experiences throughout my life, not as many as other people I know have. I know my elders in my family have. They have had a lot more than I did, because there was a time that they were growing up. When I was growing up, it was a bit more, you know, it was a bit more, let's say, tolerant in inverted commas. And now you would say my boys probably don't have as much, but they probably have. I mean, they have, because I've spoken to them about it before, but not in the way that we may have had it, and then not in the way that my dad and my uncles and my elders in my family had it. But they just had to put up with it, man, because nobody was listening to them. When people say, oh, people just used to sort of take it then, because they had to. They couldn't do anything else. They had to take it. They had to. When somebody was calling them, you know, I'm not going to go into the racial words for it, but when somebody was calling them those racial slurs, even in jest, oh, you're a this, and oh, you're a funny one, you're a funny this, and it's like that. Who are they going to complain to? Because it might have been say for instance, when they're working in the foundry, it might have been the foreman that was saying that. So who are they going to complain to? When that's there, you would say now their line manager, and above them, you never really had access to anybody above them. So where are you going to go? You're going to go to your union, and the union people, generally all white people, you know, a white. It was just a hierarchy was always, and they would go, just you're fine, you're right. It's all right. They're just messing about. It's only jokes. Who are you going to complain? Now you can complain. Now you've got there's been sort of laws written in and rules written in within companies, and you know their directives within the companies. But back in the day, there wasn't anything like that. It was it's fine. He's only messing about. He's only joking. He's not going to really do anything. It's not what I'm saying. He's only joking. It's only a word. Sticks and stones. And yeah, so that's what it is. Just like when people have this argument about TV programs, the old TV programs. Oh well, everybody used to love them then, because that was the only thing they could watch, and two, who are they going to complain? Nobody was listening. Nobody was listening to anybody of colour. Nobody was listening to them. How many TV, when you were growing up, how many TV programs were there when with sort of black or Asian characters that weren't the butt of the joke? There were serious characters within. It's very rare. And now people are complaining. Now there's a bit of diversity within, and people are complaining they've got too many roles. But it was like they were always the butt of the joke. They were always the comedy foil, and they were insulted a lot. And that relates to something that I might have in the pipeline coming down the line soon. I'll talk to Ant about it. But yeah, that was that. Take the knee. Because we're all against racism, aren't we? Can't we just live? There was a song. It's a Punjabi song, and she speaks in English at the end of it, and she says, "Why must we rest in peace? Why can't we live in peace?" in it. We don't want to just rest in peace, we want to live in peace. That would be much nicer. Because this week's just gone was an emotional week for the Sikh community as a whole, because of this was the week of the Amritsar Harmandar Sahib Golden Temple attacks, and so there was lots of Sikhs that were needlessly killed by the Indian army. This was like, I think, in recorded history, this was, if not the only time, one of the only times where the national government sent troops against its own people within its own country. Crazy shit. And then there was so much misinformation. But yeah, that's a whole, that could be a whole hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversation you can have about that. I've got loads of, one of the things, you know, I do like reading about history. One of the histories that I've read is that, and I have got lots of books in relation, it's called there's Operation Bluestar, the government called it. You can look it up. There's plenty of online reading material about it. The actions of that resulted in the assassination of the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who was Prime Minister at the time and sanctioned it basically. So and then that led to her assassination, and then that led to the Delhi riots in November 1984, where thousands of Sikhs were senselessly butchered. They had nothing to do with anything, but they were just Sikhs, and they were killed. And there was lots of there was rapes and all sorts. It was a horrible time. And like I say, I've got a book. I mean, if you want to borrow some books off me, you're welcome to. It was They are quite harrowing though when you read them. I mean, I've read the last one I read was what was his name? I've got it upstairs. But I mean, there was a point I had to put it down and leave it for a bit and then come back to it because it was so difficult to read. But I forget the name. I'll come back to it. I'll put it in the description. But yeah, it was like 15 pages, 20 pages in. I was like, this is too much, man. Because you're kind of imagining it, and you can't imagine. I mean, I was alive then, but I was I was born here. That wasn't the time. I mean, 84. So I think we went to India in 79, 80, I think it was. So it was like 4 years later, and all that happened. Because we didn't then go again till 92, I think. Well, I didn't. Me, mum, and my sister went. But as a family, we all went when I was like 3 or 4 years old. In the 80, it was like, I think it was 79, 80, something like that. But yeah, and you think all that, you don't see it though, because we literally went to the village or villages, and then you don't see all that within the villages. I suppose when you go to I was little. I can barely remember. It was like a little bits of a dream that may have happened, may or may not have happened. I remember being on a horse with a carriage thing behind it. You know, just little bits. It's like, when you're that young, I wish I could remember stuff when I was really young, but I can't. So what are you gonna do? There was what did I say I was going to talk about? Let me go back. Oh yeah, YouTube. I've been going, and because that Dave song I was talking about, I like listening to reactions, so other people's reactions to it. So rather people with sort of musical knowledge, not just like any randoms. And but then I wanted an American, so I was listening to lots of different American ones. People who are not maybe famous artists, but artists in their own right and have got knowledge of so that was pretty good listening to, because then there was a couple, like I say, that's why I know there was a couple of them that break down the lyrics really well, especially for an American to understand, because some of it's very UK based, the way he talks. And there was one guy who was a rapper. It was a white rapper actually, and he broke down the lyrics really well, saying that this is what he's talking about, this is what he means, this is what and he kind of researched it and looked into it, and yeah, I thought that's pretty good. But then I started listening to some, because in India, like they did MTV Unplugged, where they had like bands do Like, I always remember the Nirvana one, and I think the Prince do one. But I always remember, for whatever reason, I always remember the Nirvana one. And so it's basically they do an acoustic session in the studio in front of an audience, which is pretty cool. And so it's purely live. And so in India recently, they started doing this thing called the Coke Studio. Well, the India and Pakistan, and the Nescafe studio. So they were just sponsors basically, but it was a live studio session. So they had a live band, and they had like a famous or some famous artists and some not so famous artists, or some people they probably are famous but you just didn't know. So I've been listening to I was listening to a few of them, and then I was listening to some of the reactions. But I like listening to the reactions of people who aren't. So if it was like singing in Urdu or singing in Punjabi or singing in Hindi, I like listening to people who weren't versed in that language, but they just talked about the vocals in terms of. So they were like, a lot of these were vocal coaches listening to sort of classic singers or classical singers, classical Indian singers or Urdu singers. Like, you know, I'm not saying that you do know, but there was singers like Qawwali singers like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, who was he's not alive now, but he was very famous, but he's got a very distinctive style of Qawwali singing is very distinctive in style. And I like listening to the way that they break that down. And it was like, and what they hear, because we don't hear like when they talk about inflections of their voice and the way he's changed his tone there. We don't hear that. We just hear what we want to hear, because they went out our ears not trained that way. And some of these have got years and years of experience. Some of them are really good, but it's just interesting to hear how they hear that music, because they don't understand it. I mean, they put the subtitles on so they'll understand what they're saying, but it's like subtitles never quite reflect exactly what they're talking about. But still, to a point, they do. But they're not listening for the. I mean, they'll read it and say, "Oh, it's really lovely what they're saying," but then they're talking about, "Oh, did you hear the way? Do you know how difficult that is to do that with your voice and years of training?" So there's a couple of tracks, really really good tracks. But there was one little girl. She's only 8 years old. Hadia Hashmi, I think her name is. I mean, she's a bit. I think she's in her teens now. She's like I think that track was about 4 years ago, so she's probably about 12 or 13 years old now. But at the time she was 8 years old. It's mental. Her voice is mental, just crazy. It's a track called. I can't believe the song's gone out of my head now. I'll have to tag it in the description. So it's like a fusion track. So the guys, it's a band, and then she comes in like part way through, and it's quite rocky in its style, but it's the singing and it's like got a classical style, but they've fused it, so it's like a classical sort of Urdu style with with an Asian, let's say an Asian style with a sort of guitars, and so it's all it's very rocky in its essence, but it's not very rocky. It's rocky in its sound, but the essence is of classical singing. And then she comes in. I mean, it's really good without her coming in, but then when she comes in, it is crazy. And what she's singing is really good as well. And so if you put the translation on, like I say, I will link. There's a couple of tracks. I will link them that I've listened to multiple times. I'll link them in the 3 tracks actually. I'll link them in the description. They're so good. They are really good to listen to. And like I say, if you put, I think they all have subtitles. So if you listen to subtitles, they are really. There's a couple of tracks that are really beautiful in terms of what they're talking about, because they're a bit romantic, and then that one is just more like an empowering song. I can't believe I can't remember the bloody name of it. But yeah, like that's the thing, is it? You should listen to all sorts of music, like, all different types of music. I love listening to all different types of music. I listen to music all from all. If it sounds good, I don't care. I'll find. I love Spanish music for some reason. I like the guitars actually. I like acoustic Spanish. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Music. I've been listening to. I've got to stop. Just listen. I'll listen to this reaction video now. I'll listen to this reaction video now. I get caught up in it. YouTube rabbit holes. They're horrible. Because then you realise, oh shit, I've been watching YouTube for the last 2 hours now. I'll just watch this one. That's the worst mistake you can make. When you say, I'll just watch this one, and then you end up like watching 6 more. Lupin, Netflix. That just came out, and I finished it. I finished it the other day. It's good. I finished it Friday because I had nothing to do Friday evening, so I just sat there and watched all of it. That was good. It's enjoyable. There was a bit of again. I started shouting at the TV because there was a couple of things I wasn't happy with the way. Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that. Yeah, whatever. It's a good series though. Lupin. I think there'll be another one. And then, well, actually, I think they said at the end they'll be at the third one. I think it's done well for them. It's gone over well for a French series. It's gone over well internationally. Not saying that it's French and shit. I'm saying in terms of because they don't know how well they'll go across to other countries. Obviously, it'll do well in your French series will do well in France. Will it do well in the UK? Will it do well in the States? In English speaking countries, will it do well? I think it's done well, so that's why they've sanctioned another one. Otherwise, they wouldn't, would they? Business at the end of the day, you have to pay for it. And I watched the new Guy Ritchie film with Jason Statham. I think I said that last week, didn't I? The Wrath of Man. Yeah, I did. You don't need to know about that because I've already done that one. I enjoyed it anyway. And I did watch another film this week. I watched Spiral yesterday, which is like the Saw. So they've kind of resurrected the Saw series, and sort of, it's not putting too much of a twist on it, but they've got kind of this copycat that's doing those kind of murders, the extravagant and intricate murdering of people. Well, you've got the choice of you either maim yourself in some description or you die in a horrible way. And it was Chris Rock. I don't know. I think he was. I don't know if whether he did direct it in the end, but he's in it, and he was one of the producers on it. I'm sure he's one of the ones that was bringing it back. But it's all right. I don't think it got reviewed that well, but yeah, I thought it was all right. It was. I kind of guessed part way through some of the plot, but for what they are. Yeah, I'm not that fussed. The thing is, why are we watching Saw films? We watch Saw films because of the gore and the madness of the. It wasn't for the plot points, really. I mean, they added a bit of an element of, that was quite clever, what they did. And this was the same thing. Oh, that was quite clever what they did. But you gotta take it for what it is. And Chris Rock is a decent performer. He's a good actor. I think he's a good actor for a guy who's essentially he's a stand-up comedian. I think he's got, as they say, good acting chops. He's done all right. And Samuel L. Jackson's in it as well. I don't think there's anybody else notable in there. But yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's worth a watch. It's not going to scare you. I mean, it depends how scared you get at these kind of things, but it's not scary. Like I said, it's gore, not scare, and there's a difference between those kind of films. I'm not that fussed about either, really. But yeah, still haven't managed to get to the cinema. Stand a chance. Plus the times are all messed up because they don't do any earlier showings. I can kind of just go. They're kind of at a sort of later time, and I'm always busy there's always stuff to do in the evenings. That I can't have like 2 hours to myself. But I'm sure they'll start getting a bit better in terms of their times as hopefully things start opening up more. There's stuff to do. They've got to start opening shit up. This bolly flu can't stop us. Oops. Yeah, but what are you gonna do? Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. I don't know. You know when you have this melancholy. That's what I had yesterday. Melancholy. I just felt sad, but I didn't know why. I couldn't put my finger on it. I think we have those moments, don't we? Because sometimes there's a reason to, oh, this and that, you know, and shit just gets on top of you. And then yesterday it was just like, I just felt a little bit sad. I couldn't really put my finger on why, so I just tried little things to cheer me up. And then what was really nice yesterday, that my aunts came over. So these are my dad's sisters, bar one. So dad's one of 5 brothers. They're all boys on my dad's side of the family. So they didn't really have any sisters, but they had like cousins, first cousins. So, and they were all girls. They never had any boys in the family. So they've always treated each other nothing other than brother and sister. It's never been a question. So we've always treated them as like in the same way as that's my dad's sisters. You know, so yeah, they're very close families and stuff like that. So it was nice when 5 of them and my cousin, so my older aunt's daughter, she came over as well. They were doing the rounds over here, so and they messaged saying that, you know, you're home, we wanted to pop over. So that was really nice for them to go. They stayed for a couple of hours, and it was just sat in the garden and just reminisced and talked and chatted about this and chatted about that. And it was funny because it was just there was everybody was having a conversation, and then there was 2 people over there having a conversation, the 3 people over here having a conversation, and then I'm doing the rounds, I'm bouncing over there and bouncing over there and just talking to everybody. But it was just nice. That was nice. That cheered me up. That made me feel much nicer, because it's like I hadn't seen them apart from when my nan passed away recently, at the funeral, which you never really get to speak to anybody at the funeral or anything like that. So it was like, apart from that was probably the last time I saw most of them. So this was nice just to see them, and it was just in a more normal setting, and it was, like I say, and the weather was nice enough to sit in the garden and just chill and talk, and yeah, and it was nice, and it wasn't that they were rushing. You know, it's like somebody pops over, it's like, oh well, we can only stay 10 minutes, we've got to go. They were quite. It's more relaxed then. You're not rushing to get anywhere. You just chill and just chat and talk, and yeah, that was good. It was nice to see family. So I'm looking forward to things opening up again, so I can see more people, because some people might have become recluse in this lockdown era that we've had, but I ain't. I still need people. I still need to talk, and I still need to give my special brand of personality. You know what? It has changed. I have noticed that. What will be interesting is watching these videos. And see how much change there's been, because I feel that I've changed. Whether it's for better or for worse, I think I'm funny. I think I've got more strings to my bow now, which is dangerous. Now, I think everybody's changed, really, haven't they? Everybody's changed over lockdown in one way or another. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully we've all changed for the better. I've changed in terms of 12 months, how I felt 12 months ago to how I felt now. It's a very different feeling. In myself, just not about anything else, just in myself, about understanding myself. And yeah. People come, people go. Let me be your constant. So I'm gonna be good today. Plus I've got something to do in a minute. Plus I need to blow my nose and wash my face and get all this, see if there's any pollen in my eyes or whatever, because I'm gonna keep on sniffing and crying otherwise. Yeah, so I don't know what I've talked about. I don't know how entertaining that be. You know, I have to review this shit to then write in the description what I've talked about. So, because I can't remember. I can remember little bits, but yeah. And yeah, but whatever. You've seen it. You've seen the descriptions. It's a pain in the arse doing all this shit. I can see why Ant got fed up with it sometimes. It's like, you have to. It takes ages because you have to format it to upload it, and then you have to upload it. It's never short, and it sort of then uploading it and then putting it on, and then you have to write the description. You have to do this and then not upload it, then write the description. It's write the description, do the titling, and then if you want to do anything else to the video, you have to do it when you're editing it. So you have to do the edit on the it's laborious, let's say, and I have to do it all on my phone because the laptop's always busy. I've only got the one laptop I can do it. The other one is too slow to do all this. Plus, because I've recorded it on my phone, I don't want to transfer it, so it's easier just to do it on here. It's just a faff. But yeah, I do it for you, just for you. Whether it's just individual you, everybody you, I'm here for you. So, on that note, I will love you and leave you. So, goodbye. Sweet dreams. Okay, don't go to sleep yet. So, there's somebody that listens to this and it puts them to sleep. I've said it before, but it's becoming consistent. I don't know. You got to listen to the content as well. You can't just listen to me before you put you to sleep. My soothing voice, go to sleep. That's not even soothing. That just sounds creepy. I'm sitting under your bed. But I say I've gotten loopy now. But anyway, yeah, I love you and leave you. And I'll catch you soon. And goodbye.